Yes, and welcome to another session, or shall we say another opportunity to figure out what's happening at City Hall. This is James Moore with KRUU-FM, solar-powered, people-powered radio, broadcasting from the Cultural District here in Fairfield, Iowa, now in our second decade, welcoming, as we are oft privileged to do, the wonderful Jason Strong and FMC, videotaping this radio thing, which makes me very nervous. I feel a little bit overdressed for our radio audience, but Michael Halley joining us from City Hall and giving us an update. Good to see you. How you doing today?
Good. Glad to be here.
Well, nice to see you. And just a reminder, you can catch on KRUU-FM.com and the World Wide Web machine, or 100.1 in the local FM area dial here, that you can catch what's happening at City Hall the following Tuesday lunchtime after each session. Pretty much, we've been doing this for quite a number of years, and grateful to Michael for dropping by to do that. Also, Thursday dinner time, 6:30 p.m. It's rebroadcast the following Monday morning, breakfast time, 6:30 a.m. So what's on the docket?
All right. This is an informal review of our July 24th, 2017 regular City Council meeting in the middle of this dry summer.
Yeah. But there's talk of rain coming Wednesday night.
That would be good. So off the record, someone did bring this up, but it wasn't on our agenda. Was when the soil gets this dry, when we have a prolonged period without much precipitation, water mains tend to break because the soil around them settle, and you'll get more water main breaks. So there have been a high number of water main breaks this last week and weekend.
Interesting.
But our brave waterworks crews are out there weekend, night, whatever it takes to get them fixed. All right, we had a public appearance. It's been a dry spell. Speaking of dry spells, we had one. Steve Smith came to, it was kind of a simple request that he was basically being careful and to ask for something he really didn't need to ask for, is whether they can park a charter bus in a public parking lot. Well, yeah, it's okay. But just want to make sure, I guess there's a group going to
Chicago Cubs game.
Cubs. Yeah, it was the Cubs.
KMCD and all that.
Yep. Yeah. So they're getting on a big charter bus for that. So they'll be loading up at the public parking lot at the corner of B and Broadway prior to that. So we said, yes, that's fine. You may use that. Thanks for asking. Really would have been okay if you didn't ask, but sometimes it's nice.
Yeah.
All righty. Next was we considered a standard professional service agreement with Callahan. I got the name wrong last. I said it was Kennedy. It was Callahan is the name of the municipal consultant who the city used last time, contracted with the last time we did the search for city administrator. Brought us Mike Harmon, so great result. Mike is leaving. He and his family are moving back to South Dakota, going to spearfish. So we've got Mike until August 18th. So we need to get the search going for a new administrator.
Yeah, that's a short window, but I mean, obviously.
Yeah, we won't have one that soon. The schedule would be sometime, hopefully mid-August, would be the time that the council will make the decision on who they're picking. So that's another step in that process. We had a public hearing on the Adams Avenue Reconstruction project. This is a formality that's required by state law to give anyone in the area a chance to address any concerns. No one came, but it's a portion of Adams Avenue west of Maple Street. So at the intersection of Adams and Maple, going west on Adams, I believe about 425 feet. There'll be, or maybe they're currently, I think they have already started with the replacing part of the sewer line, and then the street itself will be repaved or reconstructed. So that area will be off limits to the people who live there for a number of months. Hopefully not that many, but could be up until November. And so the city asked the county, who owns the property, that there's an office. It used to be, I believe, be something that was related to the hospital, but it's on Maple. And currently Pathfinders, RC&D is in there, and there's one other, maybe USDA is in there. And there's a parking lot that the county has said, yes, the residents can use the back portion if necessary, but they just want people to be mindful that it is still being used by those other organizations.
Mm-hmm.
But at least it's relatively close to get to their properties. So one of those things, you want a new street, but then that means the street's going to be off limits for a period of time. So if you're traveling on Adams, there'll be a sign that says construction. So take another street because that section will be closed for a while now. All right. The next item was just accepting the form of contract and such for that project. And now the next portion is part of our wastewater repair and upgrade. The big ones, yeah. So this was approving and authorizing form of loan agreement, and this was for the $4,282,000 sewer revenue capital loans note. So what it was in order to complete step one, which was STEP actually stands for, it's the conveyance portion, the pipes rather than the plant. The city had to get interim financing from a bank that would then roll over once it was complete into long-term financing with the USDA at a very, under 2% interest rate. So similar to while you're building a house, there's a certain type of loan that you have, and then once it's occupied, it becomes a mortgage. Very similar to that. So once it's complete, then it rolls over. So this was that process of switching it so that we can pay off that interim loan and then start making our payments to the USDA at the very low interest rate. So we moved on that. We did hear from Travis Squires from Piper Jaffray. He's the city's financial consultant on these large projects. Actually, they consult with the city in general over financing, but something like this would fit in that. So that company, Piper Jaffray, had prepared the repayment schedule for step one, and then these two parts of the actual wastewater plant. That's over $20 million, and to show that it's well within the parameters of what we can afford based on our current rate structure for the wastewater. No need to raise the rates. When they add in step two, which is up and coming, we're just now doing archaeological review, and that's the conveyance system approximately from Whittam Woods, where step one left off, and it runs very much along Crow Creek up to the university. That's another maybe $9 million project, maybe $7 million project. When you add the repayment of that, we start getting closer to what we can afford with the current rate structure. So the city does have cash on hand that could go toward that. And essentially, the takeaway that I had was Travis was saying, you may not need to borrow all this for step one and for the wastewater plant that you currently have these low interest loans from USDA, but you may want to borrow it all, save your cash for step two, use some of your cash for step two so you borrow less for step two to keep those payments within the parameters that we don't have to raise the sewer rates. We really got lucky that the USDA had these loans and grants available. I don't know if I mentioned that we got almost another $1 million grant.
I'm not sure.
Yeah,
because it's been so many.
Might not have come out, but we did. The city got that for the plant upgrades, which is again like 23 million. And then we also got the loan a little under $5 million at 2% interest, and we have 40-year payback, which is crazy. You can't get that at a bank. Gives us a lot of time to consider. I mean, early payment would be fine as well if we want to do that at some point. But by getting those loans and those grants, the city was only required to raise the rates on the sewer by about 12%, instead of we were looking at 30 to 40%, which is considerable. So if we say we dodged a bullet, or it's very real. I mean, that's one of those expenses that it's hard to lower. You can try to be stingy with water only so far in your home or business. And it's just one of those expenses that, say, if you're on a fixed income, if you're like a senior citizen, you've got and it goes up, then where do you get it? It's just, it's a tough one all the way around. So really we're very fortunate. I got to give a tip of the hat to Mike Harmon for pursuing this. Mm-hmm. There was a bit of, I don't want to call it a gamble, but we had funding from SRF, the state revolving fund, at a higher interest rate and a shorter payback. And Mike's advised the council to hold off on that and explore the USDA option. And there was some expense and money that needed to be spent in order to explore that option, but the payback is dwarfed that. It was $100,000. But at the time, if this doesn't pan out, that's money kind of wasted. No pun intended. Talking about wastewater. Talking about wastewater.
This guy's on fire today.
It's you. You bring it out of me. You inspire me.
I'm just Peter Sellers. I'm just being there.
Yeah.
But seriously, that is that was a worthy exploration that paid off.
Yeah, very, very much. So we don't know what step 2, if we'll get grants or low interest loans. It's every time is a new cycle. So we hope to. And again, I'm going to say hope. There is a step 3 and there's a step 4, and it's only would be necessary to do those last 2 if we can't end the SSOs, the sanitary sewer overflows, with the work that's been done. But hopefully 1 and 2, fixing the conveyance system, which is a big portion of the community or the town, and then the wastewater plant may be enough. We wouldn't need 3 or 4. Just depends. So we'll see as we move forward. But this is the largest single project in the city's history. It's just a dollar figure and the scope of it. It's DNR mandated, which is also EPA mandated. Now, because we've accepted federal funds, the EPA is a little more involved. Mm-hmm. They came and took a look, and they wanted to push the time frame even more aggressive than the Iowa DNR was. And the city has asked them for an extension to give us a little more time to get it all fixed. So hopefully they'll grant that extension and they see that we are working towards it. Mm-hmm. I think that there'll be more understanding. All right.
Great.
So and then we were able to finally accept this bid package for the wastewater treatment, that the contractor, who again was very gracious to hold off and not, sometimes contractors will take advantage of a situation where the bid can't be accepted and then they have to be rebid, and they know everyone else's bids were higher, so then they bump theirs up higher. Mm-hmm. That's not unheard of. This particular contractor was gracious, did not do that, said, we'll hold to that bid that we gave you, and we'll give you 3 months to figure out your financing, and we won't change anything in there. And sometimes they'll say, you need to pay us for that time of potential lost productivity, but nothing like that. They just held the line. So then we accepted their bid. So now that can start to move forward.
Great.
This next one, something the city, in my history with the city, almost 8 years, haven't seen before, but I would love to see more of this. It's a 28E agreement. So that's legalese for an agreement between 2 government bodies. And it would be between the city of Fairfield and the Fairfield Community School District. And I'll do my best to explain. Superintendent Knowles explained it, that there are funds available for school districts who enter these kind of agreements of sharing resources. Typically, it's done between school districts and other school districts. They reached out to the area school districts, and because Fairfield is the largest in the area, the others didn't have a need for some of the services they could offer. So the school then reached out to the city. So our city administrator, Mike Harmon, talked to the superintendent, Lori Knowles, and realized that there is something of value. Well, there are things of value to both parties. Specifically, the city has 2 facilities with boiler and HVAC, air conditioning units that need to be serviced somewhat regularly. So that's the Park and Rec department, especially the older section of the Roosevelt Center, mm-hmm. and the indoor pool. Those boilers and such need to be serviced often. the city's contract is with the company that then drives somebody in, and they charge a decent amount every time that we need service. Well, the school district employs a gentleman who is a certified plumber and a certified Freon specialist or whatever for air conditioning. So they were able to offer 8 hours a week of this gentleman's time to spend at the city, not just servicing, but actually troubleshooting and getting kind of ahead of it so that we know when scheduled maintenance may be coming, and something that is very advantageous and could save a lot of money. So we get that, and in exchange, we offer space at our public works facility for the school district to store their salt for the salting purposes. And then these are all, and it's legalese again, may, not will. So there's a list of things the city may provide that our park department may take down smaller trees, things that our park department can handle, nothing too big. Snow plow some of the school parking lots. See if I can remember them without looking. Maybe I have to look.
Looking is okay on radio. I'm not so sure on TV, but...
Well, we talked about it in committee, and then the list got amended, so I just want to make sure I got it.
By the way, this is City Biz, KRUU-FM, with FMC in the house. Michael Halley, 4th Ward City Councilman, giving us an update on CityHAPs, and we do that after each session. And what do you got?
All right, so limited civil engineering services. We have a city engineer, so if there's something that could be done there. Mechanical maintenance on motor vehicles. So we do a lot of that for city vehicles over at the public works facility. So maybe we could do some upkeep on some of theirs. Cold storage space as available, and pothole repair. But again, these are may be provided, and these kind of agreements, there's not a real formal system in place, like to say, okay, did you get exactly the value you were expecting? And it's a little bit more, we kind of feel it out. The city does some similar work with the county. I don't know if people have noticed this, but the route that I drive from my home to my children's mother's home is much smoother now. And I noticed it one day, and I noticed that areas where two different types of street, maybe a asphalt overlay and a concrete, there used to be a bit of a bump, were smoother. And I could see that there was this kind of grinded pattern on it. So I asked Public Works Director Daryl Bisgard. He said, yeah, that was something we do. The county, Jefferson County government, owns the grinder, and the city will come and borrow it from them and grind down these areas where roads kind of have and this happens over time, where there's some sort of lip or little bump that gets created. And they did it along Burlington and on all these different areas. And the county doesn't charge because they sometimes borrow our pothole filling machine. So it's just one of those informal agreements that they have equipment that would be expensive for us to buy because we don't need it that often, vice versa. So we share. And I said, next time you do it, let me know. I want to take some pictures, because I think that's the kind of thing that it's not necessarily a full front page story, but for the city's Facebook page, it's a little bit of a little feel good. Like, look, we're sharing.
Literally a feel good.
Yeah, it does feel much better
when you go over it.
Yeah, I always brace myself for these bumps that aren't there anymore. So that's an example of just efficiency, and we're trying to do that even more within the city departments.
Great teamwork.
Yeah, if one department has a piece of equipment that the other can use, why would they not use it? Why would they contract and pay money to an outside contractor if they can use it internally? All right. There was no mayor report or city attorney report. The committee report was just approving. This was unanimously approved, this 2080 agreement between the school system and the city. So the last thing was city engineer Melanie Carlson likes to give a project update at the second meeting of the month. And she really didn't highlight anything because it's a lot of things that we've already talked about or things that are ongoing. So instead, she gave a plug for vehicularists. That's not the word. Drivers people operating a vehicle. Do you like how I really tried to overcomplicate that?
Vehicularists. I actually understood what he was saying, and that says more about me probably than you.
Again, when we're together,
Drivers.
I start thinking like,
it's dangerous.
Let's make it over. I want a shirt. This is ridiculous. Slow down. All right. Well, now I'm going to blush. Motorist also.
Motorist.
Anybody who's operating a vehicle, just watch out. It's construction
or a
season.
drive assist.
This is a good one. I like this. I'm going to bookmark this particular show as one of the number one top rated. All right, just to be careful on the road because this is construction season. I can attest to that.
Yeah.
The 5.5 hour drive it was supposed to take for me to go visit my family this last weekend took 7.5.
Oh, just on the highways
just because right around certain areas there's a lot of construction.
A lot going on. Yeah.
It's a kind of a funny system we have. The time of year when most people are traveling is when the roads get shut down.
It is interesting. I guess it's better. I mean, obviously it's hard to do work in the winter. But
maybe if somebody could figure out a way to do that, it could revolutionize travel.
But it's a good point.
Yeah. So it is a good point.
It's the way of the world, I think.
Yeah. So when you see those reflective vests,
do be careful.
There's a lot of work going on, not just in the city, but if Highway 1, the DOT is repaving.
Yeah. Also, just because people might be coming through the cars, or if a door opens, or all those things, it's better to be a little bit on the defensive side there. But
I'll highlight a couple since we have time. The downtown facade. So the 3 buildings remain that are being renovated. India Cafe, Brown Law. Those are right next to each other. Mm-hmm. And Morningstar Studio. It said the tuck pointing on Morningstar Studio will begin soon. So if anyone's been following this, originally Morningstar was supposed to have the old stucco that was above the second floor replaced. But when it was taken off, it was revealed there was actually really quality brickwork under there. So the owners decided to have that restored rather than cover it back up. So of all the restorations, this is actually probably the most profound and the one that's fits the theme the best of actually restoring it in historical capacity. A lot of the others involve tuck pointing brick, cleaning it up, and kind of painting in historic hues.
We could say it's historical.
It is very historical. I think before this, I would have given the most historical renovated award to Central Park Furniture because they had painted brick and they blasted that off and left it unpainted. Okay, that's a real restoration. But this one now is going to be a night and day because it had this kind of funky popcorn texturized stucco that at some point was must have been considered cooler than brick. And this is the way that these trends go. There's a point where historical was old and boring. So things were covered. These beautiful tin ceilings were covered with drop ceilings, and tall windows were, people would close off the top half, and they wanted everything to be modern. I get if you're trying to heat or cool a space, a smaller space is easier. But now the trend is to open them back up, restore what was there.
Well, it's kind of like fashion itself. Skinny pants, fat pants, skinny pants, fat pants, skinny pants. I mean, I'm kind of taking it down.
Yeah.
To a very simple level, but what goes around comes around.
That was cyclical. So we're back to let's restore it to what it was. But I'm going to say, just personally, that I liked the project, but I felt a little funny when it started to go over budget. Mm-hmm. But it was tweaked in a way where it was okay, where the grant covered more, and the property owners paid less. It was supposed to be 50-50, but it was tweaked so the property owners didn't feel the burn. And I thought, okay, well, is the scope going to then shrink to the point where it's not much? But it's really actually very refreshing. You can look around all 4 sides of the square from Central Park and just see something nice. Yeah. At least one building or two that are just look a little cleaner, maybe a little more organized. And historic hues doesn't mean like drab, boring colors. There's some really bold, like this maroon color that ERA Real Estate, if you look at the top right by the roof, they did this. I can't get enough of it. I just like looking at it. This paint job is really beautiful. So great project. It was supposed to be done by now, but as things sometimes go, they've got an extension to get it done. And I think
is there a window on it?
I think it's supposed to be done by September at this point. We'll see. We'll see if they make it.
Okay.
I believe most of the work on Brown's law office I think that one's very close to completion, and also Indy Cafe very close. So then basically going back over. But yeah, they changed the scope quite a bit. On Morningstar, they took off the entire old aluminum awning. It's just gone. So it's going to be profound when it's all done. So keep an eye.
Well, it's a great square we've got, a little gazebo and the whole action. Anything else, Michael?
Real quick, the city is repaving alleyway. It's there by Indy Cafe and ERA Real Estate. So it's the north half of the north-south and the entire east-west between Court and Main. And this is the first time the city crews have done it themselves. Essentially, they invested in a scree. It's a long enough flat edge that can shape the road. They've been using it to do patching. And I asked our city engineer, I said, well, how does that work? Because typically roads are crowned to shed water. I said, these are flat. She said, they're flat like side to side, but they angle from the middle of the block out towards the road at a certain pitch. Okay. So that the water does shed. And then the sides, I'm showing the video, but I'm not showing the listeners. The sides are somewhat angled down so that water would come onto that surface and then shed out towards the main street.
And very important because you don't want it just to sit.
Yes. So again, this is a new thing, new territory for the city to do this in-house. The hope is that it can stretch the dollars, that doing it in-house is less expensive than hiring a contractor. So then more of it can be done on the same budget.
Excellent. So that's our starting point. We'll see how it goes. What's the time frame on that?
I think they're probably at least a third the way done. So probably a few more weeks.
Cool. Well, that'll be something we can tell right away. And good luck for all the work. Thank you so much for keeping us up to snuff. Thank you, Jason Strong, for being in the house. FMC, Fairfield Media Center. And you can find them on that thing they call the internet, I think. And just like that, we're out of here. And we'll be back in 2 weeks, God willing, and the creek don't dry. No, wait, the creek fills up, something like that. Get into motor vehicle lists and get out there.
List.
And drive.
Remember that.